Why is this man's picture here? Is he alive?
Yes, he is alive. And by the way, how did you know him?
Once upon a time, there was a 4-year-old boy named Ibuka. He was small for his age, with slim arms and bright eyes that always looked like he was thinking too much. Tari was the kind of boy who carried the world on his shoulders, even when he did not want to. He always tried to act strong for his little sister, even on days when his chest felt tight and his stomach felt empty. Tari and his sister Chidinma, who was just 10 years old, lived in a tiny broken wooden kiosk at the edge of a crowded slum. The roof leaked when it rained, the floor had holes, and the door could not close properly. Every morning, Tari would wake up early, look at his sister sleeping beside him, and whisper to himself, "I must take care of her." Their mother had died 2 years before. Their father, Chief Namdi, used to visit sometimes, but not like a real father. He came late at night, stayed for a few minutes, dropped a little money, and left before sunrise. And one day, he just stopped coming completely. A week later, Tari heard from a neighbor that his father had died. Nobody told them how or why. Since then, life became harder. Tari had to do small jobs in the area to buy food. Some days they ate, some days they did not. On this particular morning, Tari was walking fast through the slum with a brown envelope in his hand. He had gotten a small job from a shop owner. He only had to deliver the envelope to a woman in the rich part of town. The woman's name was Madamera, a billionaire widow. Tari didn't know who she was. He just knew the shop owner said, "Make sure she gets it today." He liked this job because he was going to be paid enough to buy Gary and maybe bread for Chidma. As he walked, children ran past him shouting and laughing. Market women shouted, "Prices of tomatoes." The sun was hot and sharp, but Tari kept walking, holding the envelope tightly like it was the most important thing in the world. When he reached the gate of Madamera's street, he stopped and stared. The houses were huge, the fences were tall, the road was smooth like glass. Cars that looked brand new drove by quietly. Everything felt strange and too clean. Tari swallowed hard. He had never entered this kind of place. For a moment, he almost turned back, but he thought of Chidinma and forced his legs to move. He found the right house. It had a silver gate and 2 guards standing in front. One guard asked, "What do you want, boy?" Ibuka held up the envelope with both hands. "Please, sir, I came to give this to Madame Adora." The guards looked at each other. One of them bent down a little and asked, "Who sent you?" Tari pointed back toward the slum. "The shop owner." "Please, sir, she must collect it today," the guards whispered. Then they opened the gate and let him in. The compound was like nothing I had ever seen. The grass was so green it looked fake. Flowers lined the walkway. The mansion was white, shining under the sun. He kept looking around, feeling like he had stepped into a movie. A maid opened the front door and smiled politely. "Come in." Tari walked inside slowly. The air smelled clean and cold. The floor was shiny like a mirror. A grand staircase sat in the middle of the living room. Everything looked too bright, too expensive, too perfect. The maid said, "Wait here," and walked away with the envelope. Tari stood still. He didn't want to touch anything. He felt out of place, like he didn't belong in a place this beautiful. Then his eyes moved to the left wall. He saw something that made his heart stop. There, in the middle of the wall, was a giant gold frame portrait. The man in the picture looked rich, happy, and confident, dressed in a fine suit with a proud smile on his face. But it wasn't the suit or the smile that shocked Ibuka. It was the face. The man in the picture was his father. Tari felt his knees weaken. His hands began to shake slowly. The room suddenly felt too quiet. He walked closer without thinking. His voice came out soft, almost like a breath. "Daddy." His eyes filled with tears he didn't understand. Why was his father here? Why was his father's picture in this woman's house? His father was never rich. His father never looked like this. His father never lived here. At that moment, Madame Madara walked into the room. She was a tall, beautiful woman with gentle eyes. She stopped when she saw Tari staring at the portrait. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. Tari turned to her slowly. His chest rose and fell fast. He felt like the whole world was twisting inside him. He pointed at the portrait with a shaking hand. "Auntie, why is my dad's picture on your wall?" Adora froze. The envelope in her hand slipped and fell to the floor. She stared at Tari like she had seen a ghost. "You're what?" she whispered. Ibuka stepped back a little, scared by the look in her eyes. "My dad. That is my dad in the picture." Adora walked toward him slowly, her face turning pale. "What did you say his name is?" Tari swallowed hard. "Namdi." Adora's eyes widened in shock. Her lips trembled. She pressed one hand to her chest like her heart hurt. "Come closer," she said quietly. Tari didn't move at first. He wasn't sure if he was in trouble, but something in her voice made him step forward. Adora looked from the portrait to Ibuka's face. She studied his eyes, his nose, his mouth. Then she whispered, "This is impossible." Tari shook his head quickly. "No, Auntie, it is true. That is my father. He used to visit us. But he never told us he lived in a place like this." Adora's breathing became shaky. She put her hand on the back of a chair to steady herself. "Where is your mother?" she asked. "She died," Tari said quietly. Adora closed her eyes for a moment, as if a heavy pain hit her. When she opened them again, her voice was soft but full of confusion. "How long? How long did he visit you?" "Sometimes," Tari said. "Most at night. He brought small money. He never stayed long. He did not talk much." Adora covered her mouth with her hand. Tears gathered in her eyes. For a long moment, the room was silent. It felt like both of them were living inside a dream that didn't make sense. Finally, Adora whispered, "Ibuka, this man was my husband." Tari stared at her. "Your husband?" "Yes," she said with a shaking voice. "My husband? The man in that picture? The man you call your father?" Tari felt the world tilt. His head felt light. His chest felt heavy. He whispered, "But how? Why?" Adora couldn't answer. She just looked at him with eyes full of pain. The maid walked into the room again, but Adora raised her hand quickly. "Leave us," she said. When the maid left, Adora knelt in front of Tari and held his shoulders gently. "Go home," she whispered. "I will come to you tomorrow." Tari didn't understand anything, but he nodded slowly and walked out of the mansion with weak legs. As he stepped outside, he looked back at the giant house. He felt like his whole life had changed in one moment. And deep inside him, one question burned like fire. Why did his father hide a life like this? When Adora finally closed the door behind Ibuka, her hands were still shaking. The silence inside the mansion felt loud, almost like the walls were watching her. She walked back into the living room slowly and stared at the huge portrait of her late husband, Chief Namdi. The same portrait that the poor 4-year-old boy had pointed at just minutes ago. She felt a strong pain in her chest. She touched the frame gently, tracing the man's smiling face. He looked proud, gentle, perfect, the man she loved, the man she trusted, the man she thought she knew. But now she realized something heartbreaking. She didn't know him at all. She whispered almost to herself, "Nami, who were you?" Her voice cracked. She sat down on the nearest chair, held her head with both hands, and tried to breathe. Her heart was beating so fast that it felt like she was running even though she was sitting still. The maid walked back in softly. "Madam, are you okay?" Adora didn't look up. "I'm fine. Just leave me alone for now." The maid bowed and left quietly. Adora stayed there for almost 10 minutes, trying to understand what she had just heard. The boy, the way he looked, the shape of his eyes, the sadness in his face. He looked just like Namdi when he was younger. She had seen old photos of her husband when he was in his 22nd. The boy had the same eyebrows, the same small smile, even the same way of standing with his shoulders slightly bent as if he was carrying the world. It couldn't be a lie. It couldn't be a joke. In the way the boy had spoken, there was no anger in his voice, no plan, no manipulation, only confusion and pain. "A boy like that cannot pretend," she whispered. "Not with eyes like that." She slowly stood up and walked to her bedroom. She opened the wardrobe and took out a big album. It was their wedding album. She placed it on the bed and sat down. Her fingers trembled as she opened the first page. There he was, Chief Namdi, young, handsome, wearing a white agbata with gold details, smiling widely as if life was perfect. Next to him in the picture was Adora herself, wearing a beautiful lace gown. Her eyes were filled with hope. She swallowed hard and turned the pages slowly. Page after page, memory after memory, smiles, laughter, trips, family gatherings. But now every picture looked different. Every smile looked suspicious. Every loving gaze from him felt like a lie. She touched the page gently and whispered, "Why didn't you tell me, Namdi? Why?" She closed the album and pressed it against her chest. That night, Adara did not sleep. She lay on her bed staring at the ceiling, her mind full of questions that hurt like sharp stones. She kept hearing Ibuka's voice in her head. "Auntie, why is my dad's picture on your wall?" She kept seeing his confused face. She kept seeing his shaking hands. And she kept seeing her husband's smiling face in the portrait, as if he was hiding something right in front of her. When the morning finally came, she sat up on the bed with tired eyes. She had made a decision. She had to see where the boy lived. She had to know what his life looked like. She had to hear the full story. She dressed quickly and called her driver. "We are going somewhere," she said. "Where, madam?" he asked. "Ajagonal side, the slum area near the old market." The driver turned in shock. "Madam, are you sure?" "Yes." Her voice was firm. "Take me there." They got into the car and began the long drive from her rich estate toward the other side of the city. The beautiful houses slowly disappeared. The clean roads became rough. The air changed. The noise changed. Children ran barefoot. People shouted prices of vegetables. Motorcycles weaved between cars. Adora stared through the window as they moved deeper inside the slum. Nothing here looked like the world she lived in. She felt a sharp pain in her chest as she wondered how a man like her husband could hide something so big. After 30 minutes, the driver stopped near a narrow street full of broken wooden shacks. "Madam, we are here," he said quietly. Adora stepped out carefully. The air was hot and dusty. The smell was strong. People stared at her because she looked out of place with her clean clothes and expensive shoes. But she kept walking. She followed the narrow paths until she found a tiny wooden kiosk that looked like it could fall at any moment. She knew immediately this was the place. She knocked gently. After a few seconds, the door opened halfway. Little Chidinma stood there. Her eyes were big and tired. She wore a faded dress. Her hair was rough. When she saw Adara, she hid behind the door a little. "Good morning," Adawara said softly. "Is your brother here?" Chidinma nodded slowly but didn't open the door fully. "May I come in?" Adawara asked gently. The small girl hesitated, then pushed the door open wider. Adawara stepped inside. Her heart broke immediately. The room was tiny. Only one mattress on the floor, a broken plastic chair, no fan, no table, no food in sight. The place smelled like heat and old dust. Chidinma stood near the wall, shy. Adora turned to her. "Where is Ibuka?" "He went to fetch water," the girl said in a soft voice. "Will he come soon?" Adora asked. The girl nodded. While they waited, Adara looked around slowly. She imagined 2 children sleeping on that one mattress every night. She imagined them waking up hungry. She imagined them living in fear and darkness. And then she thought of how she had lived with Namdi in a big mansion with marble floors, air conditioning, and a soft bed. They ate good food. They went on trips. They lived without worry. Yet he had children living like this, and he said nothing, not one word. She held her stomach, trying to keep herself from crying. Just then, the door opened and Ibuka walked in carrying a small yellow bucket. When he saw her, he froze like a statue. "Auntie," he whispered, You came here." "Yes, Ibuka," she said softly. "I needed to see you." He put the bucket down slowly and wiped his forehead. His breathing changed. He wasn't sure if this was good or bad. Adora stepped closer. "May I sit?" He nodded and cleared the broken plastic chair for her. She sat. Ibukai and Shiden sat on the mattress. The room felt quiet again. Adara spoke first. Her voice was gentle but heavy. "Ibuka, yesterday shook me. Everything you said, everything you saw. I could not sleep." Tari looked down at his fingers. I didn't mean to cause trouble. You didn't cause trouble, Adora said quickly. You told the truth. He lifted his eyes slowly. My father. Why is he there? Adara took a deep breath. Her voice dropped. That man was my husband. Ibuka swallowed hard. Then why? Why did he not bring us here? Why did he act like we were nothing? Adora felt her throat tighten. She spoke slowly. I don't know yet, but I want to know, and I promise you, Ibuka, I will find every answer. He nodded, but his eyes filled with pain. Do you hate us now? He asked suddenly. Because he lied. Adara's heart broke again. She reached out and held his hand gently. No, I don't hate you. You are not the one who lied. He blinked fast as if trying not to cry. She turned to look at Chidima. The little girl was hugging her knees tightly. Adara asked softly, How long have you lived like this? Tari shrugged. Since Mama died. Adora looked around the room again. Then she whispered, If your father had told me, everything would have been different. There was a long silence. Then Tari spoke in a tiny voice. Auntie, what will happen now? Adara stood up slowly. She didn't have all the answers yet, but she knew she needed to understand more about her husband's life. She looked at the children with gentle eyes. Tomorrow, she said softly. Come to my house. I need to talk to both of you, and I need to show you something. Tari nodded slowly. Adora walked to the door, but before she stepped out, she turned back and said, I'm sorry for everything you passed through. Then she left the kiosk with heavy steps. As she walked back to the car, she knew one thing clearly. Her life had changed forever, and she was going to uncover the truth behind the man she married, no matter how painful it would be. The next morning came slowly for Adara. She had barely slept again. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ibuka's sad face. She saw Chidima's tiny frame in that broken kiosk. She saw the way I had asked, Do you hate us? And how it stabbed her heart. By the time she finally got out of bed, the sun was already bright. She stood in front of the mirror for a long time, her eyes red, her face tired. She touched her chest gently, as if trying to quiet the heavy feeling inside. Today, she had promised to visit the children again, and she was not going to break that promise. She dressed simply, nothing too fancy, nothing that would make the children uncomfortable. Then she called her driver. We are going back, she said softly. To the slum, madam, he asked. Yes, she replied. Take me to IU and Chidinma. The drive felt longer today. Each minute made her chest tighten more. She stared out the window, watching the rich estates fade away in the crowded streets return. The car entered the slum slowly. People were already out living their morning lives. Women cooked outside. Children ran barefoot in the dirt, laughing loudly. Men sat in groups fixing things or arguing about football. But Adara wasn't looking at any of them. Her eyes were searching for the one small kiosk she had visited yesterday. When the car stopped, she stepped out quickly. She didn't wait for the driver. She walked straight toward the kiosk. She knocked softly. The door opened just a little and Chidinma peeked out with sleepy eyes. When she saw Adora, her eyes widened. Auntie, you came again? Adora smiled softly. Yes, my dear. Can I come in? Chidinma nodded and opened the door wider. The first thing Adora saw inside was Ibua kneeling beside a small bowl washing his sister's only school uniform. His hands were moving slowly, carefully. The soap water looked old and weak. When I looked up and saw Adora standing there, he froze. Auntie, you're here. Yes, she said gently. I told you I would come. Tari stood up quickly, wiping his hands on a towel. He looked embarrassed that she had seen him washing clothes in a dusty bowl. But Adawara didn't let him feel small. She smiled kindly and said, You're doing a good job looking after your sister. He didn't answer. He only looked at the floor, his ears turning red. Adora walked inside and looked around again. This time, she noticed things she didn't see yesterday. A broken water container, 2 torn notebooks, a small pot with tiny beans, a ragged mosquito net with holes everywhere. Her chest hurt. She turned to Ibuka. Is this really how you've been living? He nodded slowly. It's not too bad. Some days we get help, some days we don't. And when your father was alive, she asked quietly, did he know all this? Ibaka hesitated. His voice came out soft. He saw it. He came sometimes, but he didn't stay. He always said he was in a hurry. Adora felt her throat tighten. Did he bring food? Money? A little, Tari said, but never enough. Mama used to say he had problems. She told me not to expect much. He looked up at Adewara with tired eyes and asked in a small voice, "Auntie, why didn't he bring us to you? Why didn't he tell you about us?" Adora felt tears sting her eyes. She sat down carefully on the mattress. "I don't know yet, Ibuka," she said honestly. "But I promise you I will find out." Just then, the landlady outside began shouting at someone loudly. "You useless children, pay your rent or leave my house. I am tired of all of you." Her voice grew closer until she appeared in the doorway. She was holding a wrapper tightly around her waist, her face full of anger. She didn't notice Adara at first. She pointed at Tari and shouted, "You are owing me again. How many times will I warn you? If you don't pay today, you and your sister must leave this place." Tari stepped in front of Echidna quickly, fear flashing in his eyes. "Auntie, please give us little time." "Don't talk," the landlady snapped. "You think you can live here for free? I am not your mother. I will throw you out today." Adora stood up slowly. The landlady finally saw her. She froze and blinked. "Ah, madam, good morning." Adora's voice was calm but firm. "How much do they owe?" The landlady stuttered. "Madam, it's small money. Only 3 months." "They are good children, but how much?" Adora repeated. 35,000. The woman said quickly. Adora opened her bag and brought out money. She counted it slowly while the landlady watched with wide eyes. When Adewara handed the money to her, the landlady grabbed it fast and bowed repeatedly. "Thank you, madam. God bless you. They won't trouble you again." Adewara didn't smile. "These children will not be thrown out again," she said quietly. "If you have any problem with them, you talk to me." The landlady nodded quickly and ran away, almost tripping over herself. When she disappeared, Adora turned back to the children. Tari swallowed hard. "Auntie, you didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," she replied. Children should not live with fear. Chidima walked closer to Adewara slowly, her small hands shaking a little. "Thank you," she said in a small voice. Adora touched her head gently. "You don't have to thank me, my dear." For a few seconds, the room was silent, the kind of silence that felt full of emotion. Then Adara said, "I brought something for you." She stepped outside and came back with 2 food bags. She placed them on the floor. "I didn't know what you liked," she said. "So, I bought a little of everything." Chidinma gasped softly and opened the first bag. Her eyes widened when she saw rice, noodles, fruit, and even biscuits. Tari stared too. "Auntie, this is too much." "No," she said gently. "It is not enough." She sat on the mattress again. Her eyes moved around the small room one more time. The truth hit her deeply. Her husband had known these children live like this. He had visited. He had seen this. And yet he went back home to her, to comfort, to wealth, and said nothing. She felt tears burning her eyes again. She closed them for a moment and took a deep breath. "Ibuka," she said softly, "I need to know something. Something very important." He sat up. "Yes, Auntie. When your father came, how did he act? Did he ever say anything about his life, his job, his family?" Tari shook his head. "He didn't talk much. He always looked tired. Mama used to ask him to help us more, but he said he was trying. Then one day, he just stopped coming." Adora's voice dropped. Did Mama know he was married? Tari looked confused for a moment. Then he said, "I don't think so. Mama never talked about it. She only said he had his own problems." Adora looked down at her hands. The pain inside her felt bigger than yesterday. She whispered, "He hid you. He hid you from me, and he hid me from you." Iba looked down sadly. "Auntie, were you good to him?" Adora's heart twisted. "Yes, Ibaka. I loved him. I trusted him. I believed everything he told me." She paused. Her voice broke a little, but now I see. He did not trust me back. Silence fell again. Chidima leaned against her brother. Tari held her close protectively. Adara looked at them and felt something shift inside her. These children were not strangers anymore. They were connected to her life in a way she never imagined. She stood up slowly. We cannot keep living in confusion. Tomorrow, both of you must come to the mansion. I need to show you something your father left, something that may help us understand. Tari looked nervous. Auntie, what is it? You will see, she said gently. But it is important. She walked toward the door, but I stood quickly. Auntie, he called. She turned. He took a small step forward. His voice was shaky. Thank you for coming to see us. No one ever does. Adora's eyes softened. You deserve help, Ibuka. You deserve more than this. You and your sister. He nodded slowly. She looked at both children one more time. Then she stepped out into the sunlight. As she walked away from the kiosk, she knew she was carrying more questions than answers. But she also knew something else. This was only the beginning, and tomorrow everything would change again. The next morning arrived with the sky still a little dark, but Tari was already awake. He had barely slept because his mind kept jumping from one thought to another. He kept hearing Adara's words from yesterday. Tomorrow both of you must come to the mansion. His stomach felt tight. He wasn't sure if he was scared or excited, maybe both. Chidinma was still sleeping beside him, curled up like a tiny cat. For a moment, he watched her face quietly. She looked peaceful, but he knew she was tired. Life had not been kind to her, even though she was only 10. He whispered, "We'll be okay, Chidinma, I promise." He didn't even know how he planned to keep that promise. All he knew was that today felt important. By the time the sun rose fully, the two of them had washed up and worn their cleanest clothes. Tari wore an old shirt that had faded from blue to light grey. Chidinma wore the one gown she had left. Ibaka brushed her hair carefully with his fingers so she would look neat. Then they walked hand in hand all the way to Madame Adora's estate. The guards saw them approaching and opened the gate without question. "Madame is expecting you," one said. Abba nodded, feeling his chest beat like a drum. Inside the mansion, the living room looked even bigger than before. The large portrait of their father seemed to be staring at them again. Chidinma squeezed Ibuka's hand tightly. "Auntie, I'm scared," she whispered. "Don't worry," Tari whispered back. "She's nice." Just then, Adora walked in. She wore a simple long dress, and her face looked soft but very tired. "You're here," she said gently. "Come, sit." They sat together on the long couch, while Adora pulled a chair in front of them. She sat down slowly like someone preparing for something painful. "Before I say anything," Adora began quietly, "I want you both to know something." She paused and looked at the children's faces for a moment. "You are safe here. Nothing you hear today is your fault. Nothing your father did is your fault. Do you understand?" Tari nodded, though his throat felt tight. Chidinma nodded, too. Adora took a long breath and looked down at her hands. Her fingers were shaking a little. "Yesterday, after I left your home, I cried," she said softly. "I cried because everything I believed about my husband, everything I trusted, broke in front of me." She lifted her eyes slowly and met Ibuka's gaze. "And when I looked at both of you, I saw the truth he hid from me." The words made the room feel colder. Tari asked in a quiet voice, "Auntie, did you know about us before?" Adora shook her head slowly. "No, never. Your father never told me." Chidinma whispered, "Why?" Adora's voice cracked. "I don't know yet, my dear, but I will try to explain what I do know." She looked at the portrait on the wall for a moment, then back at them. "When I married your father, he told me something. He said he couldn't have children. He said he had a health problem from his youth. I accepted it. I believed him." Ibuka's mouth parted slowly. "He told you he couldn't have children?" "Yes," Adora whispered. "He said it with so much sadness that I believed him completely." She wiped her eyes quickly. "But then, yesterday, I saw you, and everything changed." Tari felt like the whole world was spinning. His father had told his mother something different. He remembered Mama saying, "Your father is a troubled man, but he cares in his own way." Now it felt like everything was a puzzle with missing pieces. Adora continued, "I want to show you something I found after he died." She stood up and walked to a drawer near the wall. She opened it and brought out a thick file. It had a label on the front, Project Ajagunle Confidential. Tari stared at the label, his eyes widening. Chidin leaned closer. Adora placed the file on the table carefully. "I didn't understand this file for years," she said. "Your father kept it locked. I only found it after he died, but now I think it's connected to you." She opened the file slowly. Inside were papers, receipts, letters, and small documents. "This," she said, pulling out a receipt, "is money your father sent to your mother many years ago. Small amounts, sometimes 5,000, sometimes 10. Ibuka's heart felt heavy. He remembered those nights. Mama would smile when she came back from somewhere, secretly, with money, but he never knew where it came from. Adora placed another paper on the table. "This is a hospital form with your mother's name on it. Your father signed it. He paid for something years ago. Medicine or something else? I'm not sure." Amaka touched the paper softly. He felt like he was touching a ghost. "Why would he hide this?" he asked. Adara looked at the children with deep sadness. "Because if I saw any of this," she whispered, "I would have asked questions he wasn't ready to answer." Chidma whispered, "Auntie, did he love you?" Adora blinked fast, holding back tears. "I thought he did," she whispered. "Maybe he did. But love should not have secrets like this. Love should not hide children and leave them in suffering." The room went silent again. It wasn't an empty silence. It was a heavy silence, full of confusion, pain, and questions. Finally, Adora closed the file gently. "There's more," she said softly. "I need to tell you one more thing before we go any further." She took a deep breath. "Your father lived 2 lives, one with me, one with your mother, and he told both of us different stories." Tari clenched his fists slightly. His voice trembled as he asked, "But why did he leave us poor? Why didn't he help us more? Why didn't he let us live here?" Adora felt tears slide down her cheek. "I don't know," she said quietly. "But I promise you, I will find out, even if it hurts, even if I must turn my whole life upside down." She didn't sniff softly. "Auntie, are you angry with us?" Adora immediately knelt down in front of them. She took both children's hands and hers. "No," she said firmly. "You didn't do anything wrong. You are innocent. You were left in the dark, just like me." Iba looked down and whispered, "Mama used to cry at night. She said life was unfair. Now I understand why." Adora squeezed his hand gently. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so deeply sorry for everything you suffered." He shook his head slowly. "You didn't cause it. But I feel it," she replied. "I feel it because you are connected to me. You matter to me now." The room grew quiet again. For the first time since entering the mansion, Tari felt something strange, something warm. He didn't know the name for it. It wasn't joy. It wasn't fear. It felt like hope mixed with sadness. Adara stood up slowly and wiped her face. "There is more I need to uncover," she said, "and I will not hide anything from you. Tomorrow we will open your father's safe. There may be more answers inside." Tari nodded slowly. His hands were still shaking. "Auntie," he said softly, "are you sure you want to help us? It might bring trouble." Adara looked directly into his eyes. Her voice was calm but strong. "I am not afraid of trouble," she said. "I am afraid of lies, and I will not let lies continue." Chidima leaned closer to her brother and whispered, "She's like Mama. She has kind eyes." Adora heard it. Her face softened. She walked to the door. "I will send my driver to take you home. Tomorrow. Come early. We start everything then." Ibaka and Chidinma stood slowly. Before they left the room, Tari looked again at the portrait on the wall. The man in the frame was smiling, but for the first time, Tari felt angry at that smile. He whispered under his breath, "Why did you hide us?" Adora watched him. She didn't interrupt. When the children finally stepped outside the mansion, Adara remained in the living room alone. She looked at the portrait again. She whispered, "Nami, you broke 3 hearts." Then she picked up the file again, took a deep breath, and knew the real storm was only beginning. The next morning felt heavier than the others. Adara woke up early again, her eyes tired and swollen even though she had tried to sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ibuka's face. She saw Chidinma Ma's small hands holding the edge of her dress. She saw her husband's portrait watching her like a silent ghost. Today was the day she had promised them she would open the safe. The safe her husband had kept hidden, the safe she had never touched. The safe that might hold truths she wasn't ready for. But she had to do it. She dressed slowly and walked downstairs. The mansion was quiet except for the soft sound of footsteps as maids cleaned the tiles. When she entered the living room, she stared at the gold-frame portrait again. "Nami?" she whispered to the picture. "Whatever you hid, I will find it." Just then, the doorbell rang. Adara straightened her dress and walked to open the door herself. Outside, Tari and Chidima stood together, holding hands. Their clothes were neat, but she could see the nervousness on their faces. "Good morning, Auntie," Tari said quietly. "Good morning," Adora replied softly. "Come in." The children stepped into the mansion. Chidima looked around shyly while Tari kept looking at the floor, as if afraid to make a mistake. Adora led them to a smaller sitting room, one she rarely used. It felt less overwhelming for them. "Sit," she said gently. They sat quietly, side by side, their legs barely touching the floor. Adora sat opposite them. She rested her hands on her knees and looked at both of them. "Today," she said softly, "we will open the safe your father kept hidden." Ibuka swallowed. Will it hurt to see what is inside?" Adawara gave a sad smile. "Maybe, but the truth is better than living in confusion." There was a short silence before Adawara stood up. "Wait here, I'll get the key." She walked upstairs to her bedroom. Inside her wardrobe, behind her shoes, was a small wooden box. She had kept the key inside that box since the day she found it after her husband's funeral. Her fingers trembled as she picked it up. She walked back downstairs slowly, feeling her heartbeat in her ears. Ibuka and Chidima watched as she placed the key on the table. Adara took a deep breath. "Follow me." They walked to the study, her husband's old office. Adora felt her steps slow as memories rushed back. She remembered him sitting at the desk, writing things he never explained. She remembered him telling her not to touch certain drawers. She remembered trusting him. Now every memory felt heavy. She pushed the door open. The room still smelled like his perfume. The safe was behind a panel on the wall. Adora slid the panel aside. There it was, black, heavy, cold-looking. She inserted the key. For a moment, her hand shook. Tari noticed and whispered, "Auntie, you don't have to be scared." Adora forced a smile. "I'm not scared. I'm ready." She turned the key. The safe clicked. She opened it slowly. Inside were files, sealed envelopes, and one small metal box. Adora lifted the first file. It had a name written on it in her husband's handwriting. Grace Ume Chidinma gasped. "That's Mama's name." Adora opened the file. Inside were documents, medical receipts, rent payments, small cash transfers, a copy of a hospital card with her mother's name on it. Tari stepped closer, his voice shaking. "He kept all these?" Adora nodded. "Yes." "Then why did he let us suffer?" Tari whispered. "Why did he stop coming?" Adora looked through more papers. She found a folded letter inside the file. She opened it. It was written by her husband. "To Grace, I know I have failed you many times. Life is difficult on both sides. I will try to do better. Forgive me." Adawara felt her eyes fill with tears. Not for her husband, but for the two children standing behind her. She placed the letter on the table and picked up another file. This one was labeled Project Ajigun Phase 2. She opened it, and inside were lists of names from the slum, receipts showing small donations, notes he had written. "I cannot bring them into my other life. Family pressure too strong." Maybe one day, Adara read the last line aloud by mistake. "Maybe one day." Chidinma's voice broke. "He wrote that." "Yes," Adara whispered. "He wrote all of this." Ibaka stepped forward, angry tears filling his eyes. Why was he afraid? Why didn't he just bring us here? Why did we eat once a day while he lived like a king? Adara placed a hand on his shoulder. "I don't know yet. I promise you there is more we must see." She reached into the safe again and pulled out a folder with her own name on it. "Adora," it said. Her hands trembled more now. "This is mine." She opened it slowly. Inside were documents showing the properties her husband bought. But something else caught her eyes. Small notes he wrote, but never showed her. I am not the man she thinks I am. I must protect Ada from the truth. Two worlds cannot mix. Adawa placed the paper down, her voice shaking badly. He lied to all of us. Tari shut his eyes tightly. So he was ashamed of us. No, Adawara said quickly. I don't believe that. I think he was scared. Maybe your mother knew something about his other family. Maybe he thought introducing both sides would cause trouble. But he caused trouble anyway, Tari whispered. He left us with nothing. Adara took a deep breath and looked back inside the safe. The only thing left was the small metal box. She pulled it out gently. We need to see what's inside this. She opened it slowly. Inside were wedding pictures of her and him. Pictures of him holding a baby. Adara froze. The baby looked exactly like Ibua when he was younger. Her voice came out weak. He took photos with you as a baby. Tari stared at the picture, confused. I don't remember this. He must have come when you were small, Adara said. Before you could remember anything, Chidima whispered. He loved us then. Adora closed her eyes for a moment. Maybe he did. Maybe things changed. Maybe his fears grew bigger, Ibuka whispered. So he hit us because he thought both sides of his life would fight. Maybe yes, Adara whispered. Maybe he was afraid of what his family would do. Maybe he thought he was protecting everyone. But in the end, he only caused pain. There was a long, heavy silence. Finally, Adalora closed the metal box and placed everything back on the table. She turned to face the children. What we know now, she said gently, is that your father tried in his own way, but he failed both of us. He failed you more. Tari looked down. I don't want to hate him, but I'm angry. It's okay to feel angry, Adora said softly. You are allowed to feel everything. She sat down slowly on the chair. From today, she said firmly, we will finish uncovering every secret he left. We will not hide from anything. Tari nodded quietly. Chidinmo whispered, Auntie, what will happen next? Adara aside, I will hire a private investigator, someone who can tell us the full truth about your father's hidden life, someone who can help us understand why he did all this. Will he find everything? Tari asked. Yes, Adora said. He will find the truth, even if the truth hurts. She stood up and closed the safe slowly. But for now, she said gently, you both need rest and food. She led them out of the study and back to the living room. As they passed the big portrait again, the children stopped and stared. Tari whispered, he looks happy there. Adara spoke softly. Yes, but that smile hid many things. Before they left the mansion, Adara knelt in front of them and said, you are not alone anymore. Whatever we find, we face it together. Ibukai and Chidima nodded. As they stepped outside into the sunlight, Adora knew the real search for the truth had begun. And deep inside, she feared the truth might destroy everything she thought she knew. For the rest of that afternoon, Adora moved quietly through her mansion, her mind full of heavy thoughts. She had called the private investigator, a calm, older man named Mr. Alisa, and told him everything she had found in the safe. He promised to begin digging immediately, but even after that call, she couldn't rest. She kept touching her chest, feeling the weight of what she had discovered. Tari and Shiden were gone for the day, but their presence still filled her house like soft shadows. She could still hear their voices. She could still see the pain in Ibuka's eyes when he saw the pictures. She could still feel the small squeeze of Chidima's hand when she asked if their father loved them. Adora walked back into the study. She stood in front of the safe again. She didn't open it this time. Instead, she placed her palm on the cold metal and whispered, "Why did you put us through this, Namdi?" She was still there when the doorbell rang loudly. Her heart jumped. She wasn't expecting anyone. She walked out to the living room. A maid hurried toward her. "Madam," the maid said, "2 men are at the gate. They say they are family." Adora frowned. "Family? Which family?" "They said they are from your husband's side." Adora's stomach tightened. She knew Namdi's brothers, Uncle Pascal and Uncle Jad. They were loud, greedy, and always hungry for money. She hadn't seen them since the funeral. She walked to the front door and opened it. There they were, Pascal with his round stomach and fake smile, Jed with his sharp eyes that always looked suspicious. "Ah, Adora," Pascal shouted, spreading his arms like he was greeting a long-lost sister. Jide added quickly, "We came to see you. It has been too long." Adora stepped aside to let them in, but she didn't smile. "Come in," she said quietly. They entered the mansion, looking around with greedy eyes. Pascal touched the edge of a table. "Ah, this place is still fine," he said loudly. "You are enjoying life. Our wife." Adora said nothing. They sat down without being invited, their faces full of excitement. "Bring water for them," Adora told the maid. When the maid left, Ada folded her arms. "Why are you both here?" Pascal cleared his throat. "Ah, must we have a reason to visit family?" Jede leaned forward, his voice low. "But since you asked, we heard something." Adora's heart skipped. "Heard what?" Pascal smiled, but the smile did not reach his eyes. "We heard you have been taking in some children." Adora didn't answer. Her silence was an answer. Jed raised an eyebrow. "Is it true?" "Yes," Adora said calmly. "It is true." Pascal let out a small laugh. "Ah, Adewora. Why now? Where did they come from?" Adewora didn't blink. "They are Namdi's children." Both men froze. They stared at her like she had thrown cold water on them. Pascal finally found his voice. "I hope you are joking." "I am not," Adara said. JD's voice rose sharp and angry. "That man had children outside and you were just telling us now." "Yes," Adora replied. "I found out recently myself." Pascal shook his head fast. No. This cannot happen. If people hear this, it will disgrace our family." Adora's voice turned sharper. "Our family or your inheritance?" Jede's face darkened. "Mind your words, Adora?" Adora stepped closer, her eyes steady. "I asked a simple question." Pascal leaned forward angrily. "Where are these children? Who told you they belong to Namdi?" "They look like him," Adora said softly. "And the papers he hid confirm it." Jed slammed his hand on the table. "Papers? What papers?" Adora lifted her chin. "Receipts, letters, photos, even a file with their mother's name." Pascal stood up suddenly. "Adora, do you know what you are doing? If those children enter this family, everything will scatter." Adora's voice remained calm. "I don't care about your fears." "I care about the truth," Jide hissed. "Truth will destroy you." "No," Adora said. "Lies already destroyed enough." Pascal stepped closer, pointing a shaking finger at her. "Adewora, listen to us. Do not bring those children into this house. They don't belong here. They will bring shame." Adewora felt something harden inside her. "They lived in poverty," she said quietly. "They had nothing. Their mother suffered until she died. And you want me to ignore them?" Jide snapped. "Yes." Adora's eyes widened. "Why?" Pascal shouted. "Because if they come in, they will share inheritance." There it was. The truth. Ugly, selfish, shameless. Adora felt anger crawl through her. Not wild anger. Calm, cold anger. She stepped closer until she was directly in front of them. "Is that why you came?" she asked slowly. "To protect the money?" Pascal frowned. "We came to warn you. If you bring those children here, we will fight you. We will drag you to court." Jed nodded quickly. "Yes, we will not allow outsiders to take our brother's property." Adara looked at them with disbelief. "Outsiders? They are his blood. They are nothing." Pascal spat. "And you better stay away from them." Adewara's voice turned steady and strong. "I will not." Jude's voice rose. "Adewara, these children will ruin everything." Adewara took a deep breath. "Then let everything ruin." The men stared at her, shocked. She continued, "Those children are innocent. They suffered because your brother lied." "I will not punish them for his mistakes." Pascal pointed at her again. "You think you can fight us? We are his brothers. We have rights." Adara stepped forward. "Then use your rights. Take me to court if you want. I won't back down," Jede hissed, angry and flustered. "So you want war?" "No," Adewara said. "You brought war to me. I am only defending 2 children who lost everything." Pascal grabbed his cap angrily. "We will not let this happen. We will prove those children are not his," Adora said quietly. Then test them. I am not afraid. The two brothers exchanged a shocked look. You want DNA test? Jeet asked slowly. Yes, Adora said firmly. I want it. I want the truth written in bold letters so none of you can deny it ever again. Pascal's face turned red. You are a foolish woman, Adawara. Adaora lifted her chin. No, I am finally awake. Jide moved toward the door. We will be back, and you will regret this. Adora watched them leave the mansion angrily, their voices echoing as they shouted at the guards outside. When the door finally closed, she sat down and let out a long breath. Her hands were shaking again. She pressed them together. What have you started, Adara? She whispered to herself, but she knew the answer. She had started the fight for the children, and she would not stop. Just then, she heard small footsteps behind her. She turned. Tari stood in the hallway. He must have arrived early and walked in quietly. He looked frightened. Auntie, he whispered. I heard shouting. What happened? Adara looked at him, her eyes softening. Your uncles came, she said quietly. They don't want you here. Tari looked down, his shoulders shaking. I knew it. I knew we would cause trouble. Adahara walked to him and placed her hands gently on his shoulders. Look at me, she said softly. He lifted his eyes slowly. They were full of fear. I won't stop fighting for you, Adora said. Your father failed you, but I will not. Ibuka blinked back tears. What if they take everything from you? Adara shook her head. Let them take what they want. I will still stand by you, he whispered. Auntie, why? She smiled gently. Because someone needs to stop this circle of pain, and because I care about you. Ibuka's lips trembled. I don't want to lose you. Too. You won't, Adora said firmly. I'm not going anywhere. He nodded slowly, feeling something warm fill his chest. For the first time since his mother died, he didn't feel alone. Adara took his hand. We will take the DNA test, she said. We will show them the truth. Tari nodded again. Okay, Auntie. Adara squeezed his hand gently. This fight is just beginning. And deep inside, they both knew it was true. The storm was here, and neither of them could run anymore. The next day came with a quiet, heavy tension. Adora woke up before sunrise again, her mind still replaying the scene from yesterday. Pascal shouting, Jide, threatening, the word inheritance flying everywhere like a knife thrown in the dark. She sat at the edge of her bed and rubbed her forehead. She knew today would be even harder. The DNA test had to happen. The uncles would fight. Papers had to be prepared. Lawyers had to be involved. But she also knew something else. She was not going to step back. Not now. Not after seeing the pain in Ibuka's eyes. Not after hearing his voice shake when he said, I don't want to lose you, too. She got dressed and went downstairs. When she entered the living room, she found Tari and Chidma already there, sitting side by side on the long couch. They looked nervous, like two children waiting to enter a principal's office. Good morning, Andamon, Adara said softly. Good morning, Auntie, they whispered back. She sat with them. Today is important. Are you ready? Tari nodded, though his hand shook. Yes, I'm ready. Chidma leaned closer to her brother. Will it hurt, Auntie? No, Adora said gently. It's very simple. They will only take a small sample. It won't hurt much. Shema nodded slowly. Just then, the doorbell rang loudly. Adara's stomach dropped. She already knew who it was. The maid ran to open the door, and voices spilled into the house immediately. Loud, angry, sharp. Pascal's voice was first. Where is she? Where is Adora? This foolishness must stop today. Jed's voice followed even louder. Those children are not stepping anywhere near a lab. We will not allow it. Ada walked to the hallway calmly, but inside her heart was running. She saw the two brothers standing at the entrance, their faces red and angry. She lifted her chin. Good morning. Pascal pointed at her. Adora, you think we will let you disgrace our family? Jide nodded aggressively. DNA test for what? To prove nonsense. Adawara stayed calm. The children deserve to know the truth. And you too, Pascal shouted. We know the truth already. They are lying. Ibuka stepped forward suddenly. We are not lying. Kinney, he cried, his voice breaking. Why would we lie about suffering? The room went silent for a moment. Pascal's mouth opened, but no words came out. Adora placed a hand on Ibuka's shoulder gently. "Go back to the couch, my dear." Tari nodded and went back slowly. Adora faced the brothers again. "The test will be done whether you like it or not," Jida sneered. "We will not allow it." Adara stepped closer, her voice firm. "You cannot stop it. The law will not stop me from testing 2 children who say they belong to my late husband." Pascal hissed loudly. "You want to bring strangers into our family?" Adora's voice did not shake. "They are not strangers. They are Namdi's children," Jed yelled. "Prove it." Adora smiled slowly. "Exactly. That is what the DNA test will do." Both men stared at her helpless. Their angry voices were loud, but their fear was louder. They were afraid of losing money. Pascal finally said, "If this test comes out positive, those children will take everything." Adora replied, "I don't care about money. I care about justice." Jeed snapped. "You are foolish." "No," Adora said softly. "I am doing what your brother should have done a long time ago." Before the men could speak again, the front door opened. Mr. Elisa, the private investigator, walked in with a calm expression. Behind him were 2 people, one doctor and one nurse holding test kits. "We are ready," the doctor said. Ibuka's eyes widened. Cheetah squeezed her brother's hand tightly. Pascal shouted, "No, nobody is touching them." Mr. Lisa stepped forward calmly. "Sir, the law allows her to request a DNA test. You may watch, but you cannot stop it." Pascal looked confused. "Law? Which law?" "The Child Rights Act," the investigator said firmly, "and the Inheritance Protection Act. If a child claims a late parent, the test cannot be denied." JD's face changed slowly. He wasn't angry anymore. He was scared. Idara turned to the doctor. "Please begin." The doctor walked toward the children. "It will be quick. Don't be afraid." Tari swallowed hard. "It's okay. Do it." Chidima nodded bravely. The doctor took a small swab and gently rubbed the inside of Ibuka's cheek. Then he did the same for Chidima. The whole room was silent. Even Pascal and G didn't speak. The doctor sealed the samples. "Results will come out soon." Adora nodded. "Send them to me directly." When the doctor and nurse left, Pascal pointed at Adewara again. "You have started something dangerous." Adewara stepped closer. "No! I started something honest." Jeed shook his head angrily. "When the results come and it shows they are not his, you will look foolish." Adara answered, "If they are not his, I will apologize and step back. But if they are his, you will stop calling them strangers." Pascal growled. "We will see." The 2 brothers stormed out of the mansion. When the door closed, Adara finally released a shaky breath. She turned around and saw Tari standing there with tears in his eyes. "Auntie," he whispered, "what if the test says he's not our father?" Adara walked to him and knelt, so they were eye level. "Look at me," she said. Tari looked up slowly, his vision blurry with tears. "You look like him," Idora said softly. "Your eyes, your smile, even the shape of your face." "But the test," Tari whispered. "The test will tell the truth," Adora said gently. "And whatever the truth is, you are not alone," Chidma sniffed. "Auntie, will they chase us away?" Adora pulled the 2 children into a gentle embrace. "No," she whispered. "Nobody will chase you away as long as I'm here." Ibuka's voice cracked. "Thank you, Auntie." Adora held their hands tightly. "We wait now, but we wait together." And for the first time since their father died, the children felt something new. Not fear, not confusion, not sadness, but a small, fragile hope that maybe life was finally changing. They didn't know what the DNA results would say, but they knew one thing for sure. The fight had just begun, and they were not fighting alone anymore. The next morning felt thick with tension. Adora sat in the living room with Ibuka and Chidima close beside her. Nobody was talking much. Nobody knew how to breathe normally either. It felt like the whole mansion was waiting with them. Every few minutes, Tari kept looking at the door as if he expected someone to walk in with answers. Chidima held onto Adawa's arm quietly, her small fingers curled tightly. Adora tried to stay calm, but her heart kept jumping. The DNA results were coming today, and that result would decide everything. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. The sound echoed through the room like thunder. Everyone sat up straight. Adora whispered, "It must be them." The maid opened the door, and Mr. Oisa, the private investigator, walked in holding a brown envelope. He looked very serious. Tari stood up at once. "Sir, is that it?" "Yes," Mr. Elisa said softly. "The results." Adora's hands trembled, but she stayed seated. "Please open it." Mr. Elisa opened the envelope slowly, carefully, like someone opening a box that might explode. He pulled out the document and looked at it for a few long seconds. His eyes moved from line to line. Then he looked up. Ibuka, Chidima. The children held their breath. "The test shows." He paused. "That Chief Namdi is your biological father." The room fell silent. It was the kind of silence that felt heavy, like it was hugging everyone at the same time. Ibuka's mouth opened slowly. A small sound came out, half sigh, half cry. Chidinma covered her mouth with both hands, her eyes filling with tears. Adora let out a breath she didn't know she had been holding. She wiped her eyes quickly and whispered, "Thank God." But the moment was cut short by loud banging on the door. Boom, boom, boom. "Adora, open this door now." The voice belonged to Uncle Pascal, and he sounded extremely angry. Before the maid could move, Pascal and Jide pushed the door open and marched inside. "What nonsense is this?" Pascal shouted, "Did you get the results?" Adara stepped forward and held the document. "Yes, the children are Namies." Jide snatched the paper from her hand and scanned it quickly. His face turned red. "This must be fake. You paid them to do this." Adara raised her voice, strong and steady. "Nobody paid anyone. This is the truth your brother hid from all of us." Pascal pointed at Tari angrily. "So what now? This boy will steal our inheritance?" Tari shouted back. "I don't want anything from you. I only want to know why he abandoned us." His voice cracked, and suddenly the anger in the room froze. Even Jide blinked in surprise. Adora placed a hand on Ibuka's shoulder. "You did nothing wrong, my boy. Don't let their fear make you small." But Pascal wasn't finished. "We will not accept this. We need proof in your husband's handwriting, something he wrote himself, not just papers and tests." Adora stared at him. Then something sparked in her mind. Her eyes widened a little. "There might be something," she said quietly. Everyone turned to her. "What do you mean?" Jide asked sharply. "In the secret vault," Adawara said. "I haven't checked it fully. There was one envelope there I didn't open because I was afraid." "Mr." Oisa stepped closer. "Madam, if there is something written by Chief Namdi, we must see it." Adora nodded. "Yes, stay here." She walked quickly to the study. Tari and Chidima followed quietly, holding hands. Pascal and Jed marched behind them like watched dogs. Inside the study, Adora went straight to the safe. She opened it carefully, reached inside, and pulled out a dusty brown envelope. It had a few words written on it in a handwriting she knew too well. "In case I don't return," Adara's breath hitched. Ibuka's eyes widened. Pascal and Jed leaned forward instantly. Adara opened the envelope with shaky hands. Inside was a letter written by her late husband. She unfolded it slowly and began to read aloud. "My dear Adara, if you are reading this, then life did not go as I planned. Before I leave this world, there is a truth I must confess. I have children I could not bring myself to acknowledge. Not because I did not love them, but because I feared how the world would treat them and how my family would react." Adawara paused. Her voice began to shake. She continued reading. "I was weak. I was afraid. And I hurt both them and you. If anything happens to me, I want those children to have a share of my wealth. I failed them in life. Do not let me fail them in death." Adora stopped. She couldn't read anymore. Tears ran down her cheeks. The room was quiet, very quiet, until Pascal shouted, "This letter is fake!" Adawara snapped her head up. "How dare you?" "This is his handwriting. You know it. We all know it." Jeet swallowed hard. He looked scared for the first time. Mr. Elisa stepped forward and took the letter gently. "This handwriting can be verified, but from everything I see, this looks real," Tari whispered. He really wrote that." Adora placed her hand on his back gently. "Yes, he wanted to do right before he died." Pascal shook his head wildly. "No, we will not accept this. We will take you to court. We will fight you to the end. Adora stood tall and wiped her tears. Then fight. I am not afraid. The law will speak. Jide glared at her. We will see you in court. They stormed out of the study angrily, slamming the door behind them. When the door finally stopped shaking, I turned to Adora slowly. Auntie, is this bad? Adora knelt in front of him and held both children close. No, she whispered. It is the truth, and truth is never bad. Chidma leaned into her shoulder. Auntie, what happens now? Adora inhaled deeply. Now we take this letter to the court. Now we protect your father's wish. Tari blinked softly. Together. Adora smiled through her tears. Always. And in that quiet moment, the three of them stood there holding on to each other, knowing that the final battle was coming. But they also knew something stronger. They were no longer fighting alone. 2 weeks passed and everything felt like a long storm that wouldn't stop. Court dates, arguments, lawyers, papers, people asking questions, people shouting, people doubting. Adara stood through it all like a strong tree in heavy wind. Tari and Chidima walked beside her every step of the way, holding onto her hands like she was the only safe place in the world. And finally, after long waiting, the court day arrived. The big courtroom was full. People whispered everywhere. Some pointed, some stared. Pascal and Jed sat on one side, their faces tight and angry. Their lawyer kept talking to them in low tones. Adara sat on the other side with Tari and Chidima close to her. Her lawyer, a calm woman named Mrs. Onu, whispered, "Everything is ready. Do not worry." But Adara still felt her heart beating fast. She looked down at the children. Ibuka's hands were shaking. Chidinma kept squeezing Adara's arm. She whispered, "It will be okay." Then the judge walked in. Everyone stood. Everyone sat. The judge looked very serious. We are here to determine the paternity claim of the 2 minors, Tari and Chidinma, regarding the late Chief Namdi. Present all evidence. Pascal's lawyer stood up fast. My lord, we believe these children are lying. They want to steal from our family. Adora's lawyer rose calmly. My lord, we have DNA results that confirm the late Chief Kelechi is the father, and we have a handwritten confession by the late chief himself. The judge adjusted his glasses. Begin with the DNA. Mrs. Onu walked forward with the document. The judge opened it. He read it slowly. Then he looked up. This result shows a 99.8% match. The courtroom gasped. Pascal shook his head quickly. It's fake. The judge raised a hand. Quiet. Then he looked at Adora. You said there is also a written statement. Yes, my lord, she said and stepped forward. She handed the letter, the one from the vault, to the judge. He read it carefully. Every line, every word. When he finished, he placed it on the desk and removed his glasses. This letter is signed in the late chief's handwriting. The experts have verified it. Pascal stood up angrily. My lord, that man was confused before he died. He did not know what he was writing. The judge stared at him. Sit down now. Pascal sat slowly, grumbling. The judge continued. The letter clearly states the late chief's wish. The children he could not acknowledge must not be abandoned after his death. He paused. The whole room felt frozen. Then he said the words that changed everything. This court recognizes Ibuka and Chidinma as the biological children and rightful heirs of the late Chief Namdi. Chidinma gasped softly. Ibuka covered his mouth with both hands. Adora's eyes filled with tears. She let out a breath she didn't know she had been holding. Pascal shouted, No, this cannot happen. The judge banged his gavel loudly. Order. This decision is final. These children will not be denied what belongs to them. When court dismissed, people began leaving. Pascal and Jed stormed out angrily, refusing to look at Adewara, refusing to look at the children. But Adewara didn't care. She knelt between Tari and Chidinma right there inside the courtroom. You did it, she whispered. You were brave. Ibuka hugged her tightly. Auntie, does this mean we finally belong somewhere? Adora felt her heart melt. Yes, with me. With us? Chidma buried her face in Adara's shoulder. Auntie, are you sure we can stay with you? Adora hugged both of them tightly. Yes, my dear. I want you to stay. This is your home now. Later that afternoon, when they arrived at the mansion, something felt different. The air was softer. The house felt warmer. Even the portraits on the wall seemed quieter. Adara led the children to the living room. "I want to show you something," she said gently. They followed her to the wall where Chief Nandi's giant portrait hung. But now there were two new portraits beside it, one of Ibuka, one of Chidinma. Beautiful, bright, full portraits, decorated with simple frames equal in size to their father's. The moment the children saw them, both of them froze. Tari walked forward slowly, almost as if he was scared to touch it. Chidinma covered her mouth with her hands. Adora said softly, "This house is your house now, and your faces deserve to be here." Tari whispered, "Auntie, nobody has ever done something like this for us." Adora smiled through tears. "Well, I will do many things for you." Chidinma turned quickly and hugged Adora around the waist. "Auntie, I love you." Adora knelt and hugged her tightly. "I love you, too." Eba joined the hug, his eyes shiny with tears he wasn't ashamed of anymore. Adora held the two children close. She had lost her husband. She had lost her trust. She had lost her peace. But in the middle of that pain, she had found something else. A new family, a new purpose, a new chance to love again. She whispered, "Your father hid you, but I will never hide you. You are my children now." The three of them stayed there for a long time, holding on to each other, feeling something they had all been missing for years. Home.